Jeff Brand, welcome to Truckin' On, amigo.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Been wanting to do this for a long time.
I was thinking back to this, and one of the first times we ever met over at Good Friend, blocks away from here, you are the one that told me about the Joe Rogan podcast.
Really?
This will date us in our relationship that I had never heard of it before. I did not know about podcasts. I kind of knew the name Joe Rogan, but I didn't know who he was. And I did check it out. You're like, dude, you should go listen to the Joe Rogan podcast. You would love it. But it just wasn't blown up yet.
That's interesting because I don't listen to it now.
That's funny.
I may have listened to it on the way to our lunch or our time we were together, and then I thought, this thing's pretty cool.
I mean, it was probably 2017 or 18, I think. So around maybe.
Oh, I remember what it was. Now, we had gone, this was probably in 2020, because we had moved to California during the pandemic. We moved to Santa Monica, and we were coming back on a plane at the private airport, and Joe Rogan's plane was next to where we were getting on our plane, and I met him, and my son took a picture with him, and I showed you that picture, and I said, yeah, you should listen to Joe Rogan.
That's what it was.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was 2020.
Yes.
Yeah, because I was living over here.
Right.
And I moved here to this house in 2020. So that's cool. You met Joe Rogan.
Yeah, he is very nice.
Yeah, he seems like a nice guy. I don't listen to every episode, but I listen a few times a year, I'd say. I listen 3 to 5 times a year.
He's good at asking the right questions.
He is. He's good. He has good guests. He's able to get anybody he wants to be on the podcast. So,
for sure.
It's cool. But that was it seems like yesterday, but it seems like decades ago at the same time.
I know. I look back on that era, and sometimes things open up other things by happenstance. And my son, being a junior in high school, he was on remote school, and we had a house that we could stay in Santa Monica. And it turned out to be the most magical year of my life. I loved it there. My wife did. I flew home every couple of weeks, but being there with no crowds, no traffic, no pressure to go out because nothing was really open, being able to work from 6:30 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon, then riding my bike in the Santa Monica mountains every day is fantastic. My son loved it, walking along the beach. My wife did too. So sometimes, making lemonade from lemons is kind of what happened to us there.
Yeah, man. I loved it. Let's do it again.
I know.
Let's shut down the world for 6 months. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I do remember a lot of it. I mean, I had the guys from my office come over to our house, and we spent the day working in my backyard around our outdoor dining table. Those memories are fantastic.
We would do that. We would barbecue in my backyard on a regular basis, the whole team. We would do calls every day, a Zoom call, and we would listen to a podcast together. And I loved everything about it. It was fantastic.
And also when I'd speak to people.
No traffic anywhere.
Yeah, right. Especially, and in LA especially, which we went back, recently, and it's just a total beating at LAX.
I went there a lot during COVID too. I have a friend there, and LAX was empty.
Yeah, it was great.
It was wild. There's 0 people there, and that's in January of 2021. It's empty. It didn't get back to normal there for a while.
It also gave me I also recall having the ability to connect with people in a different way. When you call them, people weren't as rushed. You could have a conversation with people. You had something common to talk about also. But from both personal and business standpoint, it turned out to be a good year.
Yeah.
And notwithstanding the terrible things which happened and the deaths that occurred and things like that, but sometimes, like I said, through unknown circumstances, great things can happen.
Yeah. I think I met you in Vegas at ICSC
That's right.
in 2019.
At a cocktail party for a group of people that were connected through Instagram or Twitter or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. Was it like the CREI thing?
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Yep. And we met there. So
I was like, this guy's cool. What's this industrial guy doing at ICSC? But we hit it off.
yeah, because I like to go to Vegas.
Yeah, I don't really care for Vegas that much.
I did then. That was the year before I got divorced. It's a good place to go before you get divorced. You can, it's like an escape of reality city.
Right.
It specializes in that. And the year before anyone gets divorced is probably the worst year of that person's life. It's really tough. So I was thriving to be in Vegas at that moment,
right,
escaping from reality. So, yeah, then we got divorced, or we separated and basically got divorced January 1st, 2020. So it was like right before that. And then now we're really cool and get along great, and we live 5 minutes away from each other. So I don't like Vegas anymore either. I haven't been in like 2 years, but I'm going this summer for a work thing for 2 nights. I was thinking about it, like, am I going to gamble? The last time I went, I won a lot of money, like $40,000.
Wow.
So I'm up on Vegas in my long, hard history of going there a lot and gambling a lot. I'm like firmly in the black. Like I've beat the house.
Yeah, I don't really gamble.
Yeah, so I kind of don't want to gamble anymore.
One year when I was young, I found myself at one of these ICS conventions very early in the morning before I went gambling. And I'm like, this isn't probably a good idea. And also, it's not entertainment for me. My wife can gamble $100 for hours. And for me, it's just competition. And so I just figure I gamble every day with what I do.
True.
So I just don't find pleasure or enjoyment from gambling in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Although I will say, I don't gamble on any sports or anything like that, but I set up a pool for our company and for the NCAA basketball March Madness, and my wife entered the pool, my kids entered my pool, and the other guys at the office, and now we're now I can see the allure of it because I'm like totally following every team that I've picked and getting upset or elated by victories or losses.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting for me because I can play blackjack and if I lose like $1,000 or $500, it makes me sick to my stomach. And that way, which is funny if you put it into perspective,
right,
like what we do for work and the swings that we have that I can stomach like no problem, giant ups and downs. Like it's just part of being in commercial real estate.
Right.
But when I'm at the blackjack table, much smaller swings have emotional impact on me, which I used to enjoy, but now I don't really crave it. So it's like all part of my healing process, is kind of leading me away from seeking adrenaline and dopamine hits. Like I'd prefer not to deal with that. Like, so, but I was thinking about it. Like, am I going to gamble or not? I don't know. So let's go back in time and tell me about your childhood. Ages 12 to 22 is where I like to start.
12. When I was 12, I was I grew up in Dallas. I'll just start with that. My family's great. I have a brother and a sister. I was at St. Mark's at 12, which was an interesting time period for me, just being at St. Mark's in general, which is for your listeners not in Dallas, it's an all-boys school, very competitive, very hard to get into, even back at that time in the 70s. And but at that time in my life, and even continuing on through high school, I was very unfocused, very distracted, very fooling around, doing stuff that I probably shouldn't have. I mean, I remember at 12, 13, whatever it is, if you got detentions at St. Mark's, you would have to vacuum the hallways before class or before school, or go and dust mop the gym floors. And I just, I remember doing that quite a bit back then.
Yeah.
But I was a competitive diver growing up. And at 12, starting at probably at 8, I started that at 8. By the time I was 10, I was 4th ranked in the United States, went to the national championships moving on. I was always, probably in my age group in the top 10, top 15 through probably 15 or 16. But then, some guys started moving quite a bit ahead, and I started being distracted by a lot of other stuff as a 16-year-old.
What kind of dives can you do today off of a diving board?
Well, I mean, I haven't really gone off it lately, but I used to have fun when the kids were little, going to the University Park pool and doing some dives off the high dive and all that, and it was fun.
I did. We were at Lakewood Country Club, and we go swimming there a lot during the summer. And my child last summer, Levi, is like, "Dad, do a flip." I was like, "Shit," and I did a flip, and then it was fun. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, awesome. I can still do a flip." I knew I could when I was in high school, but I hadn't done it in like 20 years.
Yeah.
And I just went for it, and it was really exhilarating.
When we go up to the Y, they have nice diving boards there. I use those, but
I'm not going to do a backflip.
I do fun stuff.
Scared I'll hit my head or something.
I think people are surprised seeing an old guy doing the stuff that I'm doing there, but
definitely surprised seeing my big ass doing it.
The competitive diving, like any athlete or any kid that's highly competitive in a sport, it's not really a team sport like soccer where you're getting dragged around with a team all over the place or baseball where you're doing tons of games all the time. I mean, I was going to diving meets, being all over the United States. My grandparents would take me sometimes. My parents would take me sometimes. Sometimes I go with the coach only and the other team members. But I remember that being it was an interesting period. I was just had a lot of talent, but I was not that focused at it. I didn't try as hard. Looking back on it, I was naturally gifted at it, but I probably didn't go as far as I got older because I just wasn't focused on it or wasn't that interested in it. I continued through high school, and I did well in like the high school state championships and things like that, and prep school nationals. I went to that and did well in that, and then I was planning to dive in college. Hurt my backs after between my senior year of high school and freshman year of college, and I started in college, but then I didn't want to do it anymore after that.
Yeah.
But so that was a big part of my life. It really dominated my life because I didn't go to summer camps really, sleepaway camps, things like that. I would go to diving camp instead, and so it was interesting how much, looking back on it, it was a big part of my life growing up. Additionally, as a kid, I'd say that one of the great things in my family, my parents are great. And I was thinking about it prior to coming, was they let me do what I wanted to do and explore, and they supported any crazy idea I came up with or anything I wanted to do. Growing up as a kid, 12 on, I just remember being outside all the time, going to the creek, catching stuff, fish in a net, riding my bike everywhere. And it was different than it is now where, there are no cell phones. We come home when it got dark and, do whatever we wanted to do. And no one knew what we were doing when we weren't around. There's no one taking pictures of you, or no one had a doorbell cam who would see you if you went and rang someone's doorbell and ran away. So
I used to do a lot of that.
We did all kinds of stuff, and you learn a lot by doing stupid things and making mistakes, and that shaped who I am today, I would say. But they also supported me. I took my bar mitzvah money when I was spring of 14 years old. I bought a lawnmower and an edger and started a lawn mowing company in my neighborhood. So I printed all these flyers at my dad's office, handing them out around the neighborhood. And wherever I could push that lawnmower, 2 blocks, 3 blocks in any direction, I would try to mow their lawn. And that was a really good learning experience for me too at such a young age. I mean, my parents supported me in it. But I can tell you, just in preparation for the kind of questions I thought you'd ask, it made me go back and think about what was good, what was bad, what did I learn. But, some of the people I did a good job on their lawn, but I remember some people I didn't do as good of a job, and they would call me out on it or show me what I did. And it was kind of embarrassing, as a little kid, really, 14-year-old kid, having an adult say, well, you didn't spend enough time getting this part, you missed this part or whatever. But it taught me to do things properly and to serve my customer, I guess you would say, and because I was being paid by them. Another thing I was thinking about is that sometimes doing things without overanalyzing them is a great business strategy. Making decisions quickly, of course, thinking about them. But then, when you're 14, you just say, oh, wow. I say to my parents, this other kid's mowing lawns, I could start a company. And I did. I didn't put together a business plan. I didn't decide if I was going to make any money. I just went and bought that lawnmower and bought that edger and started walking up and down the street doing lawns. And it worked out.
Yeah.
So
that's how I've done most of my business, is just go for it.
I agree.
You can just feel it. I can feel it at least. Yeah, this makes sense. I get it. Let's go do it.
Sometimes you can tend to overanalyze things and miss opportunities, which I've done. But I have found that if I underwrite them properly and move this going now, I'm jumping ahead to my business. But if my old company, the owner of my old company, when I started doing acquisitions, Jerry Stooley, he's like, every minute that you're sitting around thinking about someone else is trying to get the deal that you're trying to get. So we get them tied up and don't overthink it. You can figure it out.
Yeah.
But going back to my childhood, as I mentioned, I was pretty, I wouldn't use the term wild child, but I was kind of hard to control. I had ADD and all that stuff. We called it hyperactivity back in the day.
Did you take meds for it?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was challenging too, because kids would tease me and stuff like that. But, what I realize now is it's kind of like a superpower in a way. I'm very smart.
Yeah.
And once I'm focused, I'm hyper-focused. And it's a valuable asset in hindsight. But there were challenging times. I mean, so I went to St. Mark's. Let's just keep going through the chronological order of my life. Did that lawn mowing, did the diving. That was pretty much, I did a lot of that stuff, riding my bike outside, doing things like that. But then I went after 10th grade, I left St. Mark's. We had a meeting with the head of the upper school and my parents, who told my parents that I wasn't focused enough and that I could continue at St. Mark's, but I wouldn't be able to do any sports until in my junior year, or wouldn't be on the diving team or things like that. So I'm like, no, I have all these friends that go to W.T. White. I'm going to just go there. Going to W.T. White was like, what do they say? Letting the cat in the hen house. And because of the lack of structure there, I did worse. There's so much distraction and such big classes. I mean, I was in all the high, like the honors classes or AP classes, but I did fine. I mean, I didn't get in trouble or anything, but I wasn't. It wasn't like I went from getting C's to getting A's. It was not that much different.
Yeah.
And then I started my senior year at W.T. White, And about a week into it, my parents were like, you know what? You're going to not get into college unless you straighten this out. And my cousin had gone to the Marine Military Academy for summer camp, came back loving it. So we flew down there on a Saturday morning about a week into my senior year at W.T. White, flew back Saturday afternoon, packed my stuff up, and I started school there on Monday morning. That's where I spent my senior year of high school, and it was the greatest. I loved the structure. I mean, you'd think it would be horrible, but it was fantastic. I loved it. I knew if every morning I got up at this time, I had to be at breakfast at this time, and it was really great. I did really well with I was on the track team, the diving team. I did pole vaulting also, by the way. It was a really good experience for me, even though it wasn't always pleasant, but it was fun. And I did really well there, and I got into a bunch of colleges, and everything worked out great for me.
Yeah. And where did you go?
I went to Boston University. And
you went to New England?
I did.
Was that your first time to go up there, or had you been before?
I had been on, summer trips with my parents around New England.
Yeah.
My father had gone to some graduate school. He was in the service in Lexington, Massachusetts in the Air Force, and he just talked about how much he liked it in Boston and the classes he took there. And it wasn't like it is now where you take your kids to see like 10 schools and you do all this research and all this stuff. I mean, I looked at A&M. My tour of A&M was essentially driving around on the way back from my grandparents' house in Houston, looking at the campus in a car, UT was going to look at my parents' old fraternity and sorority house and then driving around the campus. I didn't go on any tours or anything. I got into those schools and, some others. Virginia Military Academy, Institute. I'm glad I didn't end up going there, but I hadn't even seen Boston University, but I applied there and I got in and I just went there. Never saw it, never went to Boston, but it was great.
That's awesome.
Packed my stuff up.
So fun to live in Boston for college.
It's fantastic. That was probably the most formative. We're still under 22, but that was probably the most formative years of my life being there. I got some jobs there after school, and I was a bicycle courier, and it was a great way to see the city. I mean, that really led into my career because when I was in college, I got a job one summer as a apartment leasing guy. And it's different than, they don't have apartment complex where you just sit in an office and wait. You have to go show people these old brownstones have been converted to cut up into apartments. And doing that, first of all, I realized that someone's paying me to do something I really like doing, showing people things, coming up with ideas, finding fits for people. And also I love the architecture and the way cities fit together and the buildings and the historic nature of the buildings, as the way the Back Bay grew from as it was filled in marshland. So you could see the architecture going from the late 1800s through the early 1900s in the style of the buildings as they went. And that just made me, like a spark went off, like I want to be in the real estate business. And I want to create environments where people can gather and be together and see and feel good about their surroundings. And that was kind of set me on my way. And so I think being in Boston really was beneficial to that, and being able to explore, having that bike and riding around. You can probably see a theme here. I love riding bikes, and I do a ton of it.
And then you came back home?
No, I worked for three of us in a fraternity. One of the dads had a real estate company. We went to work for that guy's dad, and he built mini storage facilities. And so that's what I started doing when I first got out of college. And stayed up east for 3 years.
In Boston?
Yeah, in Brockton.
Okay.
Which is a working class suburb of Boston, about 20 minutes outside of town. Marvin Hagler, the boxer's from there. That's their claim to fame. But my job was to be the broker for the company and find deals for us to buy. And I did that. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then did you come back to Dallas?
No, they say certain things shape you like we were talking about before. I'll keep this brief, but one day the federal marshals came into our office in Brockton and arrested my friend from college and his dad.
Oh my gosh.
Subsequently, they were charged with insurance fraud because the father had moved from California to Boston. This is in the Boston Globe on the front page of the paper and all these other things. He had given me a car to drive, which was his kid's car, that he had me, basically sold me the car, had me take out a loan, sign a loan on the car. And because I was a broker, I had signed a lot of stuff there. Next thing I know, I'm being charged with the RICO Act. And so here I am, 21 years old, hiring a federal defense attorney to help me defend myself. And I was freaking out. I called my parents, I need $5,000 for a retainer. What am I, so to keep a long story short.
Mom, I'm prosecuted for being a gangster.
Yeah, the RICO Act, which is like money laundering or collusion.
Racketeering?
Yes. Yes, that's what it stands for. So anyway, I went to the federal courthouse in Worcester.
This is mind-blowing. I had no idea.
It's crazy.
I can't believe that you went through that.
So, I had to meet with the attorneys and...
Did you have any idea they were like sketchy?
No, this was like one of my best friends.
And so did they go to jail?
The father did. The son did not.
Thank God. It seems like the son, how much could he have really known just getting out of college?
Right. It is crazy. But, I went to court, had to go to the federal courthouse in Worcester, Massachusetts. It was dismissed immediately, and that was the end of it for me. But then I didn't have a job. I haven't really told many people that story because, I tell it now because it's kind of humorous. But, for a while when I was young, I was kind of embarrassed by that situation.
I bet.
But this is the way my life has been, a series of serendipitous occasions. And this is how things go in life. So when I was there, his daughter wanted to open a Cinnabon franchise. So I helped his daughter look for a location for a Cinnabon franchise in a mall. And so that's where I met these developers of a mall called Pyramid Company. They're a big company in New England. And after I left my job there, I next moved to Providence, Rhode Island and lived there. I know you went to Brown. I lived on Doyle Avenue right across from the Brown University telescope. And I lived there for about a year. And I got a job out of the paper, really, for a shopping center leasing company. And then I got recruited by the people that I did the Cinnabon deal with to go work for them in their mall development company. And I moved to Syracuse, New York, which is crazy. And it's not exactly the most dynamic, fun town. I didn't love it there. It is beautiful. It had some very beautiful nature areas. Syracuse University was there. I would go see a lot of concerts in the Carrier Dome and go to football or basketball there. So that was fun. But it snowed 10 feet. Gets dark at 3:30. That's not for me. But I worked for this company, the Pyramid Company. This was a great learning experience. And then they had a meeting every single morning at 6:30 a.m. And you had to go in there and you had to have your list of what your plan was for the day, what meetings you were going to have. They had a form that you filled out. It was like a 11 by 17 paper folded in half, and it's all filled out. Who's your meeting with? What is your objective of the meeting? Are you going to discuss the electricity program in your meeting with them? Have you discussed the CAM charges? And it's every single thing and it gave me a really good training of how to be prepared and organized. So 5 days a week at 6:30, Saturday at 7:30 a.m. I lasted a year there, and then I moved back to Dallas, and that's when I started working in Dallas. So then, and so now we're probably at like 22, 23.
Cool, man. What a journey.
Yeah. So it was fun. By the time I was 23, I experienced a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And then you're ready to like go home, and get out of the Northeast.
Yeah, I was tired of it. I didn't want to move back to Boston really. And, I had talked to some people in Dallas and had some connections to get introduced. You probably know who Jerry Fultz was, right?
Yeah.
Jerry Fultz was my parents' next door neighbor. So, I had talked to him, and he gave me a list of a bunch of people, got me intros and connections to meet with a lot of people that were in the real estate business, on the brokerage side. And so I had a few interviews.
What year was this?
This would have been in 1990.
Okay. So kind of like a tough market then, right? Was that a tough market? Or was it about to be?
It was getting better, but it wasn't great.
Yeah.
We had just finished up with the RTC, and I started after that period of time. So I wasn't at the time, but I knew enough to do anything with the RTC to make a fortune like some other guys did. But, I was just starting back. And so, yeah, it's pretty tough. I made $17,000 my first year in real estate.
When you moved back to Dallas?
Yes.
And who did you work for?
I worked for the Weitzman Group.
Okay. As a broker?
Yes.
Just retail? Did you have like a zone or something?
Weitzman had an office in Dallas, and they had their main headquarters in Dallas, but they had an office in Fort Worth, and I worked in their Fort Worth office. I drove there every day for 3 years, and my territory was like leasing strip centers in Arlington, Texas.
Yeah.
And I had good mentors there. I've been lucky, everywhere I've gone, I've had good people I've worked with. But then, one of the things I talk about when I do some lectures in colleges about, what is your brand? Who are you? How do you portray yourself to employers, and what kind of job do you want to have? And one of the things I talk about is find your fit. Where are you that you will be appreciated and encouraged to be your best. After 3 years of the Weitzman Group, I talked to this guy, Mickey Ashmore, who owned a company called United Commercial Realty, which is now part of CBRE. And I just had a connection with him, and I went over there. And what I say to people many times is like, going to UCR was like going to kindergarten. And the analogy is that when you drop your kids off in kindergarten, they call it hug them in and hug them out. Your teacher, when you get out of the car, they hug you, then you leave, they hug you. And that's what it was like at UCR. He believed in me. You probably, from knowing me, I'm kind of a unique individual. And he was really good at finding the qualities in each person and helping them to find the best in themselves and achieve. And I stayed there for 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's a really good environment. So that's why I say to people, find the place that is the best for you. The Weitzman Group was really great, but it was not as good as where I ended up.
Yeah.
For me.
And then what did you do during those 10 years? Did you specialize in something?
I worked on project leasing of shopping centers, but also did a lot of tenant rep work. And my journey through that is also, like many business people, it's by treating people right, getting to know people. It led me to so many other things, that journey of, starting out with I'll give you an example. I was given an account, like probably one of the smallest accounts I could give you is like a 1,200 square foot after school learning center, like Kumon or that type of thing. And I helped them. They were out of California. I worked with their real estate manager and their director of real estate. And then they moved on. We finished doing a few deals in Dallas. And the woman who was my client went to work for Starbucks, but in Seattle, didn't work in her territory. So we didn't really have any business together, but I stayed in touch with her, sent her, Christmas greetings. And then 2-3 years later, she calls me on my home answering machine. She's like, Jeff, I didn't remember I don't remember your work number, but I wanted to let you know I'm now the real estate director for REI, the outdoor store. And I want you to come interview. She says, I really like the way you got us this spot in Snyder Plaza. You went over and above. She remembers specifically a deal that I did for a very small deal, 1,200 square feet.
For the Learning Center.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's like, I want you to come and interview. I'm going to have your territory for REI, and I'd like for you to, interview to be one of our brokers. So I get the owner of the company. And, when you're at a big company, they, deals, new business comes in and it's doled out to different people, right?
Yeah.
And I doubt where I was that a big, huge client on retail side, that's a big client would be given to me. And actually, Mickey was pretty surprised. He's like, "Oh, wow," because it would probably be one of the senior guys.
Yeah.
So that's my point is, to make your own road. But anyway, we ended up getting that business, and I ended up doing several deals for REI. And through REI, this is just the journey of life. I was doing a deal for REI in San Antonio, and next door to us was a company called Specs Liquor Store. They're going in the space next door. And I called the woman, real estate person for Specs. I told them, we're going to the REI. Tell me about your deal. I wanted some information.
Is her name Jody?
Yeah, Jody.
Yeah, Jody. I've talked to her before.
Well, unfortunately, she's now passed away from cancer.
Oh, really?
But yes, it's terrible. I loved her. But the point I'm making was that, from that REI relationship that I had, I met the people from Specs. She's like, we've never used a broker before in our expansion, but we want to come to the Dallas market. You can't tell anybody because we just don't want people to know our business. I want you to fly down to Houston, meet the owner of Specs. And I ended up doing like 13 deals for them, like 250,000 square feet of deals for Specs because of that after school learning center that I did a good job on.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you have very similar stories in your business where people move and connect you with other people and you do a good job and they then help you to find other business.
For sure. I love REI. I just went in there and got my daughter a $7,000 sleeping bag.
Yeah.
Not really.
It must be heated or have solar.
They are proud of their merchandise there. It kind of feels like you're like in this hippie outdoor store, but the price tags are like you're at Chanel.
No, they know what they're doing. They've changed a lot too. They're bringing a lot of, they sell Viore and other brands. They're not
luxury brands.
Not as granola-y as it used to be, but it's a great store.
I used to go to where was the old one? Was it on LBJ?
Yeah, had the rock climbing wall. My kid was so cool. Into it.
Did you do that deal?
No, that was already there when I started.
Oh, okay. Wow, what a fun ride. Yeah, that's the coolest thing about what we do. You never know. And working at a place like Collier's, we have 500 offices globally, so we get these referrals that come to our team randomly. They're just sometimes brokers just call us because they've seen me on LinkedIn or something,
right.
And like, I need a 5,000 foot warehouse and whatever it is, like we have a rule as a team, like we work on it. Like if something comes to us that's industrial and it's tenant rep, which is what we do, we don't really do anything outside of that, then we're working on it. We're going to bust our asses on it because I've seen it too many times where that small little deal turns into a large deal. And if it doesn't, like, it doesn't matter. Like you just feel it's all about just like doing the work in a really good way. And I don't look at it. I'd go crazy if I thought about real estate as a deal by deal type thing. I think of it as like, we do a really good job at what we do. And we try to work with like great people and that do the same. And if that's the case, then it just becomes like an annual revenue thing.
Right.
And it should be pretty good if we keep doing what we need to be doing. And that's going to include doing small, tiny deals that don't pay well. Right. And really large ones we do no work on and get paid like 10x what we deserve to get paid on it. Like there's just always that. It's a funny world that we live in. Because, you can go work on like a small deal and I joke all the time, like you'll spend 10 times as much effort and get paid 1/10 the amount. And if you do a 1,000,000 square foot industrial lease, that's about the easiest deal you can freaking do. There's not that many options. Every landlord's begging you to be their tenant. So you have so much negotiation power, the irony of it. And then you get paid on 1,000,000 square feet versus 1,000 square feet.
But there's always those dots that'll connect no matter what you're working on if you do it right.
Yeah. And if you make a mistake on the 1,000,000 square foot deal, though, then that's a lot of money that gets lost. So most 1,000,000 square foot tenants are pretty careful about who they're going to work with. Like you better have a proven track record of not making mistakes.
Correct.
Right on. And then you left brokerage. I mean, not really, but you started your own thing.
Well, in 2003, I was at UCR, but I started looking, and I wasn't the kind of guy, I was really working on my brokerage business, but I wasn't the kind of broker that was out doing stuff on the side. I didn't have, quote, a side hustle where I was buying small deals or doing small deals, but I saw that the ownership was where you could have long-term wealth. And one of my clients, I talked to them and just basically convinced them to hire me. I said, I want to move from the brokerage office. I'll still do some brokerage at your office, but this Greenway Investment Company, and they were my client. I was leasing their shopping centers, and I asked them if I could have a position there. They didn't have to pay me anything, but just give me a piece of each deal that I found and some, a fee that could help me to live. And I went over there from 03 to 09 and went and searched for deals, and we bought a lot of shopping centers and land and different things. And it was really a great learning experience. The people there I learned a ton from, and it was pretty important part of my career journey. But then when things turned downward in 08, 09, I spent a year living on my savings during 09, and the owner of the company says, we might not buy anything for 5 years from now. I don't want you to go anywhere. I want you to keep, we love having you here, but we might not. And I'm like, well, if I make money on finding deals and we're not going to buy anything, then that doesn't make sense for me. And then I thought, if a simple way of looking at it is like, if no one's paying me to be here and I'm not making any money, I might as well not make any money on my own. And this could be the perfect time. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I went back and I went and talked to Mickey at UCR about coming back and doing brokerage again. And he's like, you should start your own company because you always have a place here if it doesn't work out. So I felt like I had that safety net. I also had the encouragement and support of my wife. And I just went and started my own company in 2010. And a friend of mine, Chuck Brown, owned a title company, and it was slow for him. And he had all these empty offices. So he let me take an empty office, and I started the company and just myself and a computer and an empty office in 2010. And now we're 15 years into it.
That's awesome, man. How'd you meet your wife?
Well, I met her. This is I know that you asked a few questions about mysticism, perhaps.
Perhaps.
I don't want to jump ahead.
No, you can. Well, I like to ask, have you had a mystical experience?
The answer to that is, I don't believe that I have per se, but I think everything in my life has had a mystical overtone to it in a way, because atoms collide, and the collision of an atom makes things happen, and people seeing people or knowing people or things happening for a reason which you don't understand leads to where you are in your life. And if my brother hadn't had a next door neighbor in his dorm who he ended up getting married to, who happened to be from San Antonio, and if that girl from San Antonio, my brother's wife, hadn't seen my future wife at a party and said, "Oh, you just moved to Dallas, you should meet my brother-in-law," And so we got fixed up on a blind date, and then we got engaged 9 weeks later, and married 6 months after that. And we've been married 29 years. We have 2 kids now. But it just happens. And so, everything in my life seems to have happened sometimes for reasons you don't expect.
How old were you? That's pretty fast moving.
Well, I was 29. I mean,
yeah, I did the same thing.
I wouldn't say I'm impulsive,
except
but
I wasn't married for 29 years.
Yeah. Well,
but we got engaged after 6 months, married a year later. And I was recently told on a podcast by one of my friends that was insane. And it's like,
everybody thinks it's crazy, but I mean, my parents were engaged after 2 weeks.
Yeah, mine
they were
were
married
too.
50 years.
Mine were too, and they will be next year.
And I felt like, I met her. We had a great time together. I went down a month afterward. I went down and met her family at Thanksgiving, and I was like, I can see myself around these people. I just like the way it feels. And she got along great with my family, and once something feels right, I just go ahead and acted on it, and it just has been the best thing ever.
You didn't overanalyze it.
That's exactly right. Going into that theme.
You just went for it. Gut instinct, baby. And it paid off, it sounds like.
It did. And, I can credit her. I mean, in business, you talk about I think if you have a purpose in your life, I noticed that my business production, my commission production and my business production just went way higher once I was married. And I think it has to do with just doing something for other people.
Yeah.
And so she's been a great supporter for me, telling me to encourage me to start the company, always standing by my side. I mean, we had a deal that after I started the company, probably 3 or 4 years into it, I built a shopping center in Huntsville. We had this land under contract. And when you're building from the ground up, there's a ton of expense that goes into pre-development cost, unlike buying shopping centers or existing, which I do now. And we were at the point now where I was like, I had just started building my savings back up from having to live off of it in 2009 to 10. And, I was like, we got to put up a bunch more money to keep this going, because I had to have the leases signed before I could get my loan. And she's like, she supported that. And I was like, I had the confidence if we lose all our money, we'll just make it again. But I pushed all in on that one deal, and it worked out. And we ended up building and selling it. But my point is that I had the backup support of my family on that.
Yeah, that's so important. So if you could go back in time, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Well, I wouldn't give any advice to my younger self at all, because I think that the journey I took as a young person led me to who I am today.
Yeah.
So those things which I experienced that we talked about already, and a lot more stuff that I could go on for hours about, shaped me.
Yeah.
So it would be easy to tell my younger self not to do a lot of stupid stuff. Maybe that's the advice. But on the other hand, if I hadn't done it, I'd probably be doing those stupid things now.
Yeah, that's true. I think about that quite often. I wouldn't, who knows what life would be like without all the mistakes.
Right.
So, tell me more about your business now. So you're buying, owning, selling properties. Are you brokering, kind of, sometimes?
Yeah, so our company has kind of 3 aspects to it. I don't do any brokerage, but we do broker. There are 2 other guys in my office that do brokerage work and tenant rep. The way I look at it, my focus is on buying existing multi-tenant shopping centers, focus specifically on unanchored strip centers between 10 and 35,000 square feet, mainly filled up with mom and pop tenants in suburban markets, not super high-end properties, but 95% of our tenants are what I would call immigrant entrepreneurs, mom and pop tenants. We love that. We found a niche. It works for us. And we own properties to the east. The furthest east is in New Orleans, and the furthest west is in Albuquerque. We have more properties outside of DFW than we have in DFW right now. But, and we continue to look for them.
Yeah. And you did a lot in East Dallas.
I did.
Did you do the Good Friend package? Did you own that or?
No. I met those guys because I was buying a property near to them.
Modern Tot? Did you do that?
Yes, I did that.
You did that. My kids went there.
Yeah. So here's what happened in East Dallas. We bought a property on Jupiter and Garland Road, which is further east. And then I had an idea, a hypothesis, I should say, is that I realized that people who are young, who are like in their late 20s, getting married, they cannot afford to live in the Park Cities anymore, and they can't afford to live in Preston Hollow anymore because they can't buy a house and send their kids to private schools. And so those families are moving to Lake Highlands, which is, to people who are listening outside Dallas, which is east of the expressway. And so I figured those people are going to be shopping more along Garland Road or being in that East Dallas market more. So I decided that we were going to go and really focus on the Garland Road, East Dallas market. And the proof of that is that doing 2 buildings I bought on Garland Road both became daycare centers, the one where your kids went and another one down the street. And the reason being is you have the hypothesis I have of young families moving over there is it played out. And the other reason I didn't mention was because if you move to this area, the Lake Highlands area, your kids will be able to be in the schools that are really good elementary schools. So I think people can buy over in this area. They can live here till their kids have to decide where they're going to go for junior high or high school. So that's like get married, have a kid grows to 5, goes from 5 to 12. So that's like 16, 17 years they can live in that house they buy in Lake Highlands. That develops a community. We want to be part of that community. So we bought a lot of buildings along Garland Road and put different things in them, doctor's offices, the daycares, et cetera. And then we ended up selling them. And at some point it became too well known to other people. So the pricing became where we didn't feel we had a strategic advantage any longer.
Everyone figured it out.
So we're out of that now.
When did everyone figure it out? What year?
I would say probably 3 to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see the Shoreline Church turning into a giant apartment development, that's a sign of it. When you see the thrift store being sold and turned to apartment development, that's another sign of it. Mm-hmm. But, I felt like Good Friend, it was a great sign of the market. The other thing I believe was that
was like 2012 or something.
Yeah, but what I believe is that when someone who lives on this side of Central Expressway gets over here, they stay over here.
Oh, yeah.
Unless there's a specific reason they have to go back to do something, they do their entertainment, they're going out, they're eating, their family stuff, their kids stuff. You have the YMCA's over here that has the soccer leagues and the church schools and all that. So there's no reason. So once they're over here. And so we wanted, to be part of that.
Yeah. Smart move. And I could just tell like when you were doing a deal that you were doing, like that you were painting the building black and like making it look cool. I don't know. You had a cool vibe to everything that you were doing. Well,
one of our things we like to do, I mean, all the properties we buy is to try to just change it in a way. What I want to do is I want to give I want to create the nicest property in that particular submarket or a nice property. But bigger than that, I want to make the communities that we work in feel like that someone really cares. We're not going into the middle of Highland Park or the most high-end areas. We're going into, moderate income areas, And when we can renovate something, it makes the community feel like, hey, someone cares in this neighborhood. And the tenants feel like, wow, someone cares about this property. We're going to do better in this property. If they do better, then I can charge more rent. So there is a motive in me doing that, but I think it helps the community. We also have in every one of our budgets, we have a line item for putting murals on our properties. And we've been doing that for, 10 years.
Yeah.
And it makes me so happy when the church was next door to that modern tot, and we had this mural that was done by Allie Koch. It's her first mural she's done. And she put "Be the Change" on the side of it. And I would look at the Instagram from the church, and there are all these people tagging them with their family or their kids and their mom in front of that mural. So that's just like icing on the cake for me. It makes me feel great that I've actually done something that makes the community happy.
Yeah. Well, you have. So
thank you.
Good job, brother.
Thank you.
What's your favorite restaurant?
I mean, there's two answers to that. From a literal sense, my favorite restaurant is probably like Tomasito's in Santa Fe. We go to Santa Fe quite a bit, and I mean, I could eat there every day. And I'm a creature of habit. I'll order the exact same menu item every single time I go.
I'm like that.
And I can go there every night for a week. As a matter of fact, I'm going to Santa Fe next week to work, and I'll probably eat there quite a bit. But when I was thinking about what my favorite restaurant in other places, it's really, to me, it's not the restaurant. It's the memory of what you experienced at the restaurant. And a lot of that has to do with who I was with and what happened there. So I don't necessarily remember the food and say I have to have that dish again. It's really like I just want to have that experience again with the people that I was with.
Yeah. So what's one of those places? Or Tomasita? Is it Tomasita's?
Tomasita's, it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
It could be Good Friend. I had just a Fortunate Sons or other pizza place.
I haven't been there yet.
It's fantastic. And they treat you so well, and they care.
Yeah. And
that's what matters. It's not expensive.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the fanciest place in town to be great. We like this place over by our house called Rougeau, which is it's like a Japanese restaurant. I love Japanese food.
Yeah.
So
I've never heard of that.
It's at Preston and Forest, and it's in the middle of a strip center. But you walk in the door, you feel like you're somewhere else.
That's cool. What about a book? Are you a reader?
I do. I read a lot of books, ranging from all kinds of authors, from Cormac McCarthy to Walter Isaacson, which is biographies. Cormac McCarthy are long novels. But if I had to talk about one book, there's a book that I read called The Choice. It's by Edith Agar. It's about her surviving the Holocaust in a concentration camp. And the theme of the book is, and what she's a psychologist. She has a PhD in psychology. And what the theme is, what she always said to herself is, I don't say, why me? I say, what now? And so when she was in the concentration camp, and she says, one of the other lines I remember from the book that she says, if I can survive one more day, tomorrow I will be free. And so that's just really powerful to me.
Yeah.
That in those circumstances, her being all came from within herself. Another thing she says, I want to look at it so I make sure I say it correctly. All of your ecstasy in life comes from the inside. So in the worst circumstances that anyone could imagine, she remembered who she was when she was young. She went to the concentration camp when she was like 14, but prior to that, she was a ballet dancer. So in her mind, she would just keep thinking about the beauty of what she did as a dancer. And it helped her survive. So that was a really
As a
good
14-year-old, she's like, has the wherewithal to figure out this like mental approach to being in a concentration camp.
Right.
That is wild. I've got to read it.
It's unbelievable.
I asked my next question, do you have any quotes? And you just like gave me 3.
Those are those quotes. 3. But, you know, I also love Bob Marley.
Oh, yeah.
Matter of fact, one of my companies is called R&M Properties, which is Bob Marley's initials. And one of the quotes I really like is one of my favorite songs, Redemption Song, and it's emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. And so I love that too, because it really talks about no one can control you.
It's the same thing that your other thing's talking about, the book's talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so,
kind of.
Yes, of course. And I just love that. And I think about that a lot. And just in allowing external forces to define who you are, just staying true to who you are on the inside.
Have you ever read an Eckhart Tolle book?
I've heard of it, but I have not. But I've heard you talk about it.
Yeah, I love his books. I've read them like multiple times. The Power of Now and then A New Earth. But his books just like really talk about the process of that like consciousness, like raising your consciousness and how to like control your mind to like do with all the things that you're talking about here, like, and just that art of doing that. He like, I've read so many books on the topic, but he's really great at explaining it.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it the first time I read it, granted, and a friend told me to read it, and I read it. I was like, well, kind of like there was some cool stuff, but it didn't really hit me. And then 5 years later, I read it like, whoa, I got to read this every year, you know?
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. So, let's see. What is a song? Redemption Song? Or do you have another song?
I love that song. I like a lot of different music. I mean, my office, we have music playing all day long.
That's cool.
And it can range from, I mean, I like hip hop a lot. I like older rap music a lot. I like Americana music. I like Pink Pony Club.
I like that.
I can't get out of my head.
Club. Pink Pony Club.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. I'm going to have it in my head the whole day. And
I listen to that all the time. My daughter is a big fan.
Yeah, it's good. But, you know, I like Jason Isbell a lot.
Yeah.
And I have to look up the words of that because there's something that I really liked in that song. You know the song "Cover Me Up"? Have you heard that song?
I don't know. I'm not like super into him. Like I like him, but I don't know his songs really.
Yeah, we've been to his concert like
Southeastern or something.
Yeah. We've been to probably 5 of his. See him 5 times. I mean, out in L.A. all over the place, but we like it. But so one of his songs, you know, he's a former alcoholic, or I don't know what you want to call it. He's a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
Or a drug addict.
Yeah.
And one of the songs is about his recovery, or his wife, who he's now divorced from, but helping him in his life, and it's Cover Me Up. But he talks about, so cover me up and know you're enough to use me for good. And that, I guess it all goes back to, you know, the same thing. It's like there's, you know, find people who believe in you. Yeah. Who will support you and help you achieve. And that's what that says to me also.
That's cool. Did you watch his documentary?
I did.
I watched that.
You could see in that documentary the kind of the strain and tension between the two of them.
Yeah.
So
I know her because she used to play in Dallas all the time. Yeah, she's from Lubbock, and she played in a band called the Thrift Store Cowboys that we would play shows with back in my 20s. And so, yeah, I was watching that, and I could tell. I know what a divorce looks like that's about to happen.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I haven't gone to see him since he's been divorced. But when they were married and seeing them on stage was like magical because the way they look in each other's eyes, they're playing, she's playing the fiddle and he's playing his guitar, and the way they go off, singing together. And I think it would be interesting to see him in concert. And I mean, maybe I don't want to see him in concert anymore.
Yeah.
But, it's like I saw Willie Nelson in concert several times, like my dad, and at the Sportatorium and, going way back. But I don't think I go see him now because I have a image in my head of what he sounded like when he sounded great.
Yeah.
Paul Simon's coming to town. I saw Simon and Garfunkel. I've seen Paul Simon. But I don't want to see Paul Simon when he doesn't sound the same as what he did when I hear him on one of his albums, singing Kodachrome or Me and Julio by the Schoolyard.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's selfish of me. Maybe I should be more generous to that artist and realize that they have a different perspective now or sound differently. But, I guess I'm a music consumer and that's my choice.
Yeah, that's right. You have the choice. So you can go watch Chappell Roan.
Yeah.
And she's in her prime right now.
Yeah, right.
That's what you like.
Yeah.
I saw Willie. I've seen Willie a few times. Like the last time was probably 2017. He was good. Like I just feed off the energy, and I didn't have the option really. Like, I mean, I guess I did, but I didn't see like the Rolling Stones in the 70s. That would have been awesome. But I saw the Rolling Stones. They were so good at the Cotton Bowl.
I saw them at the Cotton Bowl
in 2021
in the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were so good. I bought tickets
really
to
good.
Atlanta, and I went to the Atlanta show. And I swear, like, I feel this with Willie and the Stones and some other artists that I felt this with, but not anyone probably as much as those two. Like the energy, and you get to like feed off that energy, where then when I leave and I'm just like, I got Mick Jagger energy for 24 hours after the afterglow. And
right.
Now it's like, whoa.
You should, another book that I like that you might want to read is called Rolling Stone by Jan Winter. Have you read that?
No.
It's his memoir. He founded the Rolling Stone magazine.
Oh, okay.
And his connection with all these artists is incredible. Especially what made me think
cool.
of it was he is very good friends with Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
Or he still is. He's still alive.
Yeah. I read Keith Richards' autobiography and Willie's. Those are both really good. I'm reading Dave Grohl's right now.
I read that.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I just started it. What about a cause? Is there anything that you support?
Yeah, I'm pretty involved with the Genesis Women's Shelter.
Okay.
I'm on the board of their men's group, and I feel like what they do is important. I think there's a lot of women that are treated poorly by spouses or loved ones or boyfriends, girlfriends, etc. It's had a real big effect on my family. Not from anything that happened to my family, but I'm talking about like, I'll try to be brief, but my daughter is in law school right now. She graduated from Tulane. She worked as a victims advocate for victims of sexual crime for 2 years in Denver. Now she's in law school, and she's going to intern at the DA's office in the family violence unit. But I think all that stems from me taking my daughter with me when she was 13 or so to Genesis Women's Shelter to see what they do and to help serve food to the people in the shelter. And then taking her with me when we go to the courtroom and do advocacy for people who are trying to get restraining orders. And then she shadowed the DA there. And so my point is that it's had an effect on, help. We've been involved with it quite a bit. My wife volunteers at the shelter also once a week too, doing stuff that's like cleaning out an apartment after someone moves out, not like just doing real hard work she does down there. So that's something we really support.
That's amazing. And where do people track you down?
Well, on Instagram, we're Brand Partners Co. My personal Instagram is Brand Project. And then our website is brandpartners.co, not com, just .co.
Right on. And that's all I got today, my brother.
I hope you found it helpful or interesting, and it's fun being here.
It's always fun to catch up. And
yeah, for sure.
My favorite thing about this podcast is now I have a recording of a conversation with one of my favorite people that will last on the internet forever. So today is no different. Well,
you do a very good job with it, and you ask a lot of great questions that lead to good conversation. So I'm so happy to be here.
Well, thanks, brother. Thanks for trucking on. Peace.